And you're locked into another episode of the Leo podcast. We are here every week making that intersection between faith and animation and delivering those redemptive analogies you've come to know and love. Before we get too far into it, if you haven't already, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and ring that bell so that you're notified every time we post a new video. And before we also get any further into today's movie and topic, my lovely wife, Rebecca.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be here.
And Rebecca, you know, June and July for family stuff, and we kind of talked about this on the last podcast, just seems to be incredibly busy, not just for our personal lives, but family lives, stuff for the podcast, different vacations, places that we're going, just a lot of events. Would you say that's true this year as well?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Like, as we talked about last week, we had a graduation in the family, and then we've got like a couple birthdays coming up in June and May and July, and my goodness, it's just like summer is so full of lots of things and vacations that are planned, and it's all very exciting. But I think that's, the days are longer, so it makes sense that you would cram more in.
Right.
And then so that by the time winter comes, you can calm down and just like not do very much.
Absolutely.
I kind of like that flow of life,
Yeah. And last week we were at Shogun for your brother's birthday. 14th birthday.
14th birthday with the family.
Yeah, growing up so fast.
I know.
And I think we all experience this where we go to family events and by the middle of it or whatnot, at least I know I experience this, I'm just emotionally drained. Because I've, talked what I'm going to talk about. I've engaged with people, but there's a part of me that is like, I love you, but I don't want to be around you anymore.
Yeah, you've like met your threshold of being around people in general. I've been feeling that a lot more recently. I don't know what's going on, but I'm being much more introverted as of late.
I've influenced you. I've taught you the way.
I mean, I've always been kind of both, like more extroverted and introverted. But yeah, in this season of my life, for whatever reason, a little more introverted.
Yeah, that's why I don't do ushering or children's ministry at work. Is because
at church.
Yeah, that requires me to interact with people, and whenever I'm in the media booth and they're like, okay, take 60 seconds or 30 seconds to say hi to those around you. I'm in the media booth like, not today.
Yeah, I gotta say, that is the worst part of church. Are those like 30 seconds to a minute where you're expected to like shake people's hands and say hello, knowing that you won't talk to them again if you didn't know them before?
I mean, it is a step in the right direction to kind of build community, and I'm fine with that.
Right.
But I want more than just a 30-second, hey, hi, how are you kind of thing.
Yeah, it just seems a little like, what's the point? Other than to say hello to people. It's not hard, but I don't know.
Yeah. So in the comments, are you introverts, extroverts? Are you kind of a little bit of both, more one or the other? Let us know. But we have a guest today, and they are more than qualified to talk about what we're going to be discussing as far as the movie. She is a cosplayer. She also has a YouTube. She also has a YouTube channel known as Sophiecat Cosplay. Also, her same name on Instagram. Sophie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for agreeing to be on with us. So, with you, are you more extrovert, more introvert? Are you kind of in between? Does it just depend?
That's a great question. I always considered myself an introvert. I very much relate to, after socializing, I definitely need to set aside time to recharge. And I think that's like the definition of introversion is if you get your energy from like being alone. So I always classified myself as an introvert. But sometimes it's like I do get some energy from being around people. So it might depend also on just my general energy levels and what I need.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of like a little bit of both. Just like which one do you more lean towards? Because I totally feel that. I think everyone's kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yes, yes, and how much, like, coffee I've had really does, like, impact it as well. So, yeah.
It's like that picture I've seen on different social media platforms where they have the coffee cup and it has like little meters and lines of when is it acceptable to talk to that
Yeah.
person.
Yes, so, give me at least an hour, maybe 2 hours in the morning before I'm ready to have any kind of conversation.
Well, we want to have our audience get to know you a little bit better. So, Rebecca, as always, well, not as always, because I've done it a couple of times, but I'm going to hand the reins back over to you to go ahead and do our interview portion. So, when you're ready.
Awesome. So, Sophie, first of all, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, your faith background, some cosplaying that we've already mentioned. So, yeah, who are you? Tell us.
That's a great question. Well, I guess you already know I'm Sophie. I'm a cosplay creator. I focus a lot of my cosplay content on anime, video games, but I actually started my cosplay journey by doing Disney cosplay. So right now I'm wearing one of the first like cosplays that I started out with, which was a closet cosplay of Belle. So I thought it would be fun to go back to that, my humble beginnings. As far as me personally, outside of cosplay, I also have a background in library science. Right now, I work for a public university. And then, as far as my faith background, I've always considered myself to be incredibly blessed to be raised with a love for Jesus and an understanding of his love for me. So I was raised, going to church. I went to a Christian undergrad university. So I'm just like really blessed to have that background. That's not to say that, everything has been just like peachy keen and smooth sailing. I've gone through kind of harder parts of my life, but I can look back on those parts of my life and see, Jesus' love shining through. So I try to ground myself and who I am and my cosplay content in my desire to just like show that love for others that Jesus shows for us. At least that's my goal anyway, is to show positivity, being a welcoming other people into the cosplay world. That's kind of what I ground my cosplay content on. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I gotta say, I loved also having just like an undergrad from a faith-based university, like you did. It's just like I don't know, it helps when everything you do has your faith put into it, including schooling or cosplaying, like you were talking about. So that's really neat. So you mentioned that Disney was kind of your beginning into cosplay. Is that right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always been interested in dressing up as characters, but before I even knew like what cosplay was or what the cosplay community was, I think that like my journey officially started in the cosplay community when I did the Disney College program right after that undergrad experience. So that was another thing that I was really blessed to be able to do. And I actually met my best friends like through that program who introduced me to like this is the cosplay community. This is like there were some cons in Florida that they went with me to, and kind of introduced me to that whole scene. So my first like cosplay con experience was just a really casual like Belle inspired outfit based or like from pieces I already had in my closet that I brought to the Disney College program. But yeah, so Disney really, I mean, I owe a lot to that experience, just like who I am today is doing that Disney College program. And to this day, like I still travel to those Florida cons at least once a year, meet up with those friends who are still very much part of my cosplay journey as well. So, yeah.
That's really cool. It's nice that you had sort of these people to come alongside you and show you, um, the cosplay world and like what is it all about. And it's so helpful that to like not feel alone, in the community or feel like you have a community that likes the things that you like. That is invaluable, I think, to surround yourself with those kinds of people. So that's really awesome. Um, what would you say is the most rewarding and or frustrating part of being a cosplayer?
I would say, like we were talking about, I think the most rewarding part for me has been the community. I think that many of us who are in like the nerdy spaces or go to cons and things, like we grow up feeling a little bit different from others for our interests or whatever we like to do. So it's been really wonderful to connect with people who, they're similarly so passionate about stories. They're so passionate about fictional characters. And another thing that I find really rewarding is, when I dress up as a character that I really love and go to a con or go to an event or something, and no matter how obscure that character is or how much I look like them or not, somebody gets really excited and is like, oh my gosh, I love that series too. So like recently I dressed up as Sailor Venus for a con. And like this family and this little girl like came running up to me. We're so excited, and I was so happy to see, people, even kids that young, they still know Sailor Moon. They get excited. So that's really rewarding about cosplay. Also, it's just really fun. And as far as frustrating, the first thing that comes to mind are the wig headaches. That's kind of, when you're wearing a cosplay all day long, it can get kind of tiring and it can be a little exhausting on your body. So making sure to take care of yourself throughout the day is really important. And then frustrating also, I mean, you guys probably also relate to this, but it's, social media and like keeping up with all of that, it can almost feel like a full-time job or at least a part-time job. And I wish I could do it full-time because I love it so much, but that can be kind of, time consuming. And it becomes a little frustrating to keep up with that sometimes. But overall, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love cosplay so much.
That's fantastic. Yeah, going back to social media and putting out content, it is a bit overwhelming and it can be very exhausting. I try to plan out as far ahead as possible when we're putting out reels, posts, stuff like that, just so I'm not scrambling to put something together like minutes before or whatnot. Stories, I give myself a little bit more grace on. I don't plan those out as much. I just kind of on the fly. But I think I mentioned this before, but I see other podcasters and they're like, yeah, we're so far ahead. And it's like, how far ahead are you? And like, what do you mean ahead? Like, what?
What is this ahead you speak of?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, with any type of content creation, it's kind of like ebb and flow, and you kind of learn as you go and kind of make it the best to your abilities with what works for your schedule.
Yeah, I think personally, I do work full time. But I love cosplay. I want to make it part of like my weekly routine to make content, just because it's like it's also a way to recharge for me because it's like connecting with who I am, my passions, things like that. But sometimes it's like life obligations are just in the way. It's like okay, over the weekend, you might have other things to do, but I try my method. It might look like, oh, I'm cosplaying so many different characters. Oh, I have so many different reels and posts. But really, it's like once a week or once every 2 weeks, like I'll batch make content and then just like stretch that out as I can. So I'm sure that you guys sounds like similar kind of approaches to that. But that's how I've found it to be more manageable.
Yeah, certainly.
So we've talked to a couple of other cosplayers on our channel here, and we've asked them all. So we'll ask you as well. What is in your cosplay bag? That's like the things essentials, like things that you need when you go out to do cosplay stuff.
Oh, yeah. I love this question as well because when hearing other cosplayers' answers, I'm always like, oh, that's such a good idea. I'm going to put that in my bag next time. But personally, the first thing that comes to mind are protein bars, like granola bar snacks. because it's so easy. Like when you're at a convention or you're at a photo shoot or whatever you're at, it's so easy to forget to take care of yourself that way. And like, okay, I need to sit down and have a snack. I need to eat, so that later on you're not getting that like wig headache that's making you stop in your tracks. So that's really important. Also, food at convention halls is notoriously so expensive. So a way to prepare in advance is to put snacks in your bag. Other than that, cosplay related items, I always have like an emergency makeup bag with like my favorite like lip gloss, eyeliner, eyelash glue, because you never know, throughout the day if it's really hot outside, if you're gonna sweat, things don't usually look how I expect them to after an hour at a con, like walking around Artist Alley or outside in the heat. So that's one. And then bobby pins is also pretty important for the last con that I went to. I had a little wig mishap. I walked outside and it was really windy. And then my wig was a little bit crazy. So I had to like readjust and pin things down a little bit more. So bobby pins are always helpful. And then I would say, aside from like phone charger, if you can fit in a bag, like an alternative pair of shoes, like some comfy flats or something, because some of the cosplays that I wear, like with tall boots or heels, that gets exhausting. So after your photo shoot, if you have something to change into, especially for like the transport home, that's always helpful.
Yeah, those sound like really helpful things to have in your bag, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so you mentioned, I think, in the beginning that you have a YouTube channel as well. Tell us a little bit about your channel, like what goes on there.
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is relatively new, but I'm really excited about it. So right now I'm doing some Let's Plays of some computer games that I loved growing up. So I'm kind of bringing those out of storage and replaying them for the first time as an adult. So I've started with the Pajama Sam series. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but it's part of the Humongous Entertainment catalog that I loved very much as a child. So I'm playing through those. And then just doing some like cozy playthrough things like that. And then I'm also trying to incorporate some cosplay content. So I just uploaded a cosplay vlog. I have another vlog coming very soon with one of my very best friends who I met at the Disney College program. She came to visit me and we went to see the new Spy Family movie in cosplay. So we kind of documented what it was like to cosplay in public and like to a movie. So fun little adventures like that. So I hope to use my YouTube channel as a way to keep showcasing the things that I love like that. I've tried to build up like my Instagram, TikTok, but people, they see my cosplays on those pages, but they don't see as much like who I am, like outside of cosplay or like what my personality is like. So it's been fun to use my YouTube channel in that way to kind of showcase the other things I love and who I am.
That sounds like a lot of fun and really exciting. I'll have to check it out. I haven't done that since, prior to our recording, but that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you said that you brought them, out of the closet and everything. Now, are these actual CDs, or do you have like a virtual like machine on your computer that you play digitally?
That's a really good question. So I do know now, sorry, my camera's doing some weird things. I do know now that you can download these games. Like I think that they are available on like Steam. Some of them are available on the Switch now even. But me personally, yes, I grew up with these like CD copies that I still have. So when I was little, my parents would like order them. This is aging me a little bit. They ordered them like from a catalog and like would give me a new one for my birthday or something, So I gradually collected all those CD-ROMs. So it's really exciting to be able to play those again. And I have to like physically put them on my computer. They are old games, so I have to do some system configuration before I record to get them to play right. But yeah, so I still have that whole collection sitting on my bookshelf, actually.
So I'll ask this last question. We usually ask this for anybody who's a lover of animation, anime. So, what are your top five anime picks, or American cartoon picks, or a combination of both? This could be current, past.
It's going to be so hard for me to pick just like 5 even. Animation is my favorite like media format. I love it so much. So I've watched quite a lot. I would say my favorite like American cartoons, Kim Possible was always really special to me. Love that one. Probably like classic SpongeBob really shaped like my humor. Like it's so silly, but I know that's still going on, but I have not watched any of the newer episodes. But the first ones that came out when I was a kid, loved it so much. Let's see. Gravity Falls is also a favorite of mine.
Yes, Gravity Falls.
Such a good one.
I had not seen it, and then Becca had actually said, "Oh, have you seen this?" And she had seen it like twice over. So I think we took one summer to watch it, and
It's
I
a
really
great
enjoyed
summer
it.
show.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, I should rewatch it this summer. It's been a few years. I think the last time that I watched it, all my friends in undergrad, like we would, like every night, we'd study together in someone's dorm, and we would watch Gravity Falls. So we'd be like, "Oh, let's watch the next 2 episodes." And that's such a beautiful series because it's a story, that starts in it. And like a lot of cartoons, they don't have such a clear story arc. I loved it so much. Yeah, I could go on and on about that one, but and then I have to mention a couple of anime series probably because I cosplay from anime the most. But I'm gonna say my favorite anime is probably Fruits Basket. It's really special to me. I have a lot of Fruits Basket posters in my room actually, and I know I'm 28, but I've got the anime posters up. So special. And then Spy Family is one of my favorites right now. I think I'm going over 5 series right now, but I also have to mention My Hero Academia because that one is also really fun. So.
And the
Good
newest
picks.
season of My Hero Academia just premiered. I know that we usually watch the dub of it, so the
Oh, the dub's not up?
yeah, the first dub may not, because I know it's always like 2 weeks behind.
Ew.
That I know, I haven't checked. Yeah, I know a couple current series that we're watching. We're watching A Condition Called Love, which is just
Fascinating.
I know. It's very nostalgic of the drama and the comedy of old style anime romance comedies or rom-coms. And we're also watching Chillin' in Another World with my cheat superpower or something, which is really interesting.
I do like that one a lot. That one's a good one.
I haven't seen either of those, but I think that I've heard of them before. I love the titles of like Chilling in Another World. It's like so many of them like start that way, but they like with my smartphone, like campfire cooking. There's a lot of them out there, but that one, yeah, I haven't seen that one, so I'll put it on my list.
Yeah, it's a good one so far.
Yeah, what's interesting about that one, Chilling in Another World with a cheat superpower, is that they are taken from what to us is a fantasy world into another fantasy world.
Yeah, I liked that isekai aspect because so often you see it like it's from what we know in the world, and then they go to a fantasy world. But it was like from one fantasy world to another, which I was like, oh, that's different. I like that.
Yeah, that's a twist on the isekai genre. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I don't know what that would look like. So, okay, I have something to watch tonight.
Yeah, I think they're running out of ideas for isekai though, because as far as like the outlandish ones, like reincarnated as a pig, my second life as
a pig.
My second
I haven't seen that one.
My second life as a vending machine.
I've seen that one.
Know of it. You watched the first episode, right, Josh?
Yeah, it was.
And it was.
I mean, I didn't get too far into it. It was interesting, but I mean, maybe just not my thing, really.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Awesome. Well, anime and all that aside, we are now ready to get into the movie that we'll be talking about today. And Sophie, you suggested this one, so go ahead and tell our audience what the movie we'll be talking about today and give us a little bit of a synopsis for those who may be unfamiliar with what the movie is about.
Absolutely. So I may have teased this a little bit early, but Beauty and the Beast is the movie that we're talking about today. And that movie is so very special to me personally. I mean, I mentioned I have a library science background, so, Belle is very special to me. But it was one of the Disney movies that I probably watched the most growing up. So I'll try to do my best on a summary of it. Beauty and the Beast is about a arrogant prince who is cursed by an enchantress to look on the outside like a beast, like a monster, because he is so arrogant and vain. The only way to break the curse is to have someone fall in love with him and then to show that love. So if he's able to break the curse, then he can transform back into Prince Adam, I believe. And so the movie centers around then Belle, who is a young girl from a neighboring village to the castle, who ends up in a series of events. Her father is taken prisoner by the beast. So she asks the beast to, or pleads with the beast to take his place and stay in the castle on behalf of her father. And then it is a story of how the two of them fall in love. So I guess it's going to be a spoiler, but I think a lot of people know how the general story goes, even if you haven't seen the animated film. But that is my my kind of primitive summary of the movie Beauty and the Beast.
That was really good.
Yeah, and this was around the Disney Renaissance period, where a lot of the
This was towards the beginning, right?
Yes. So this was, I think, a little bit after Black Cauldron, which was done in the 80s. But then they took a little bit of the break. So this was
it was right after. It was early 90s, right?
I think it was 95. I want to say. I don't know that for sure.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, there were a lot of Disney movies that came out in 95 because what Disney had done previously was real old style 2D. So like The Rescuers, the old Mickey Mouse, Donald Goofy cartoons, and they were coming into this. I think The Little Mermaid was one of the first.
It was the first.
Yeah, it was.
I think of the Disney Renaissance. 89.
Yeah, 89, and they were experimenting with, original music in animated movies, but would that really grab the attention of children and nonetheless families, trying to appeal to both audiences. And as we've seen throughout Disney's, history during that time, the Renaissance period really catapulted into what we know as Disney today. And Beauty and the Beast delivers on all fronts. So the very just majestic animation of that time that was portrayed. Also, the music by Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, geniuses for what they have brought to Disney throughout the years. So it is. If you have not seen this, and I don't know many people who have not seen Beauty and the Beast, the Disney version at least.
Unless they're like Gen Zers who don't care.
Yeah.
Because there are quite a few.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. You can get it basically anywhere, your local library, your streaming services. So definitely recommend it just to start that right off the bat. But Sophie, you want to kind of guide us into the discussion day. So what's some of the main themes that you want to delve into first for this movie?
Yeah. So rewatching this movie as an adult, it had been so many years since I'd watched it. But when I rewatched it in preparation for the podcast, I was really blown away by all the connections that you can make with this movie and how many real life, stories or morals you can draw from it. So to me, I mean, just starting with the beginning scene, and I know you mentioned how beautiful it is, animation wise, just that first scene that's portrayed in stained glass, the story of how the prince has been cursed. I think that really sets up the theme of the movie and kind of what I wanted to discuss today. So, Prince Adam in the beginning, it said that he had everything that his heart could desire. He was a prince, he's rich, he's in this beautiful castle. I'm sure, he has everything that he could possibly want. But the enchantress, she says, he had everything, but she had seen there's no love in his heart. So I think the theme of this movie is very much, what is love really? And, what is beauty really? Because what is beauty in the eyes of God is kind of what it made me think about. Because Adam, the reason that he is cursed is because he dismisses the enchantress. She's not beautiful to him. He's like, why should I give you any time of day? She tries to give him a rose, and he is just not interested because she's not beautiful. And then she transforms into this outwardly beautiful person, but and then mentions or brings up the theme of that movie is just he's void of love, even if he has everything else his heart desires. So it made me think about, what is love? What is beauty really? What should we be striving for? So I'm curious as to what you guys thought about the beginning of the movie and kind of how that sets up the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you've said, we open in the beginning, kind of like the stained glass, retelling of the first part of what happened, kind of like a mini prequel of what happened to the beast when the enchantress kind of came to his door, as an old woman in disguise and saying, "Oh, I just want shelter, and I don't have much to offer. But take this rose." And I guess the beast is just so repulsed. Like, why would I let somebody like you in? I mean, what do you have to give to benefit me? If you don't have anything worthwhile, then be gone. And it makes me think of, I can't remember the verse, but it's Jesus saying, what we do for the least of these. So for those you clothed, for those you offered water, food, shelter, stuff like that. For everything that you've done for the least of these, you have done to me. But if you do not do it in love, then you have nothing. You've just wasted like your good fortune, your good measure. So that's kind of what I was thinking about during the first part of the movie. Rebecca, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was well, first of all, I know we're talking about the Disney version of Beauty and the Beast. I did a lot of research. Okay, not a lot, just like a day's worth of research. Not that much.
Real
But
scholarly of you, Rebecca.
I know, I know. But I found out that, I mean, I've always known that it was based on a book, but I didn't know what the real story was or who did it. Apparently, this story has been done over and over and over again. I mean, we all kind of know that. There's so many different retellings, but it all started with, what was her name? Gabrielle Suzanne de Beaumont or something like that. Somewhat close. Anyway, she wrote Beauty and the Beast in 1740 is when the first or an earliest publication came out. And it's a longer novel length story of all of this. And
Yeah,
it
it gives
gives.
a lot of like background.
Mhm. Yeah, I started reading it. Well, first of all, I found it on Audible because I mainly read books on Audible. And I was like, it's only 40 minutes? Like, really? Is that the full story? So I bought it. It was only like $4, thankfully. But come to find out after listening to it, it was the abridged version. And I was like, no, I want the unabridged version. Like, why? Yeah, so that was frustrating. So then I was like, I could not find the unabridged version anywhere on Audible for like to listen to. And so I ended up downloading it for like $1 or something on Kindle. And I was trying to read through it before our um, podcast recording today. That didn't work out, but got enough of the story to where I was like, wow, this is very different, very different from the the Disney version of Beauty and the Beast. It actually more closely resembles a story of A Court of Thorn and Roses. Have you read that book or heard of it?
I have read that book. Yes. So that's interesting. So is it a more like darker kind of story?
Yeah, from what I read, I didn't get through all of it. It was like just the first couple of chapters that I read. It is, I mean, it's really similar in the like, so it's closer to the live action version of Beauty and the Beast that Disney did, in that the father who's a merchant goes um to like reclaim his fortune. He had lost his fortune, goes to reclaim it, couldn't get it. And so he ends up finding himself at the beast's castle. And all this food is laid out. It's a warm bed to sleep in. And he was like, wow, this is amazing. And the audacity of this guy, he's like, wow, this must be a gift for me. thinking that he's like, where my daughter's going to sleep and all of this. And you're like, what planet are you living on? No, this is. Anyway, so he ends up going out to the rose garden and picking a rose. And it was at that point that the beast gets really upset. And he's like, you try to steal from me with all of my hospitality I gave you. Like, I gave you food and a warm bed and all of these things. And he just kind of freaks out and makes a deal with the father to bring back one of the daughters. If they love him, then they will sacrifice themselves and offer themselves up basically to live in the castle in place of the father. And so that's about as far as I got in the actual book.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I had not obviously read the original book, but it does sound similar to A Court of Thorns and Roses and the more live action movie, which did give a little bit more insight into who the prince is, or his like backstory. The animated film, when I did watch it, I was a little bit surprised by how short it seemed to me, but I think now I'm just used to, watching longer series, or watching, it seemed like, oh, this is an abridged version of the story, but no, it's like the full animated film. But I'll have to read the book and see what, parallels to draw from that. And I think it's interesting, the rose seems to stay a theme in every like retelling of Beauty and the Beast. That seems to be one symbol that's always carried through.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, now this might be presumptuous of me, but I kind of think the rose is a representative of beauty in general, and how if you don't, I don't know, it's like if you don't respect the beauty, then you'll get hurt by the thorns, or like that there's something underneath the beauty, essentially. Like there's more than just the beautiful rose. It could be dangerous as well, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. I mean, it's also in the story. The father, he goes to take the rose because he thinks it's beautiful, and then it leads him to danger. It like leads to the like, so metaphorical thorns as well. There was one scripture. I think I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but one scripture that I thought was interesting because it's kind of about beauty also, but it's very literal about the rose maybe. But Isaiah 48 says, the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. And so, the rose in Beauty and the Beast is a symbol of, the beast's like timeline. He has before, or until he has that window of time to fall in love. And then if the rose wilts, he's out of time. But true beauty on the inside, it never fades. So a little bit of a parallel I found there with the rose.
That's really cool. I like that that scripture reference there. I think that's really true. That it will never fade. The word of God.
Roses are such a beautiful symbol. Like there's so much you can pull from a rose. Like it's a flower, but it has so much meaning, in our literature and in poetry, because there are so many things you can draw from that.
Yeah, I find it interesting too that there's this whole language of flowers. Just in general, I think that was way more popular in like the 1800s, more so, maybe earlier, of this like language. Like if you give a woman a whatever, then it means these things, and you're like, so it's really fascinating. The only thing that I think that's really stuck is roses being sort of the symbol of love.
That's true. I don't know, but I wonder how much like stories like Beauty and the Beast have played into our society or cultural understanding of what a rose means. But I have heard of that language of flowers. It's like, oh, yellow tulip means that. It's like people used to be able to read like from a bouquet, like what the message was. I think that's so cool. We should bring that back.
That does sound really cool. And going more into kind of like, what love is and how you should view love, we had two different dynamics, one that opposes all these things and one that initially opposes but begins to endure these things. And Sophie, you have referenced a couple times on the podcast, Corinthians, which, funny enough, I think we mentioned this on the previous episode, is our church is actually going through the book of the Corinthians, a verse by verse study. I think it's called The One Church, is what the series title is. But For anybody who's familiar with 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7, we've even if you are not a person of faith, you've definitely heard this in some contexts. Love is patient.
Usually marriage,
Yes.
like a wedding.
Yeah. So love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy or boast, it is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way, it is not irritable or resentful. No wrongdoing, or the rejoicing in that. And as far as like the arrogant and rude, yeah, Prince Adam, turns into the beast. He has all those, not so great qualities, but then Belle enters into the picture where she displays this action of sacrificial love for her father, the inventor Maurice, and the beast is kind of like taken aback because I took this guy, he's my prisoner, but you would take his place. Well, why would you do that? And we could go into the obvious, parallel of Christ being the ultimate sacrifice for us, taking our place for what the penalty of sin would be. But I want to tackle the character of the Gaston because he also does not have these great qualities described in 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. Because throughout, he doesn't endure, begin to consider the better things that are higher than being rude or arrogant. He just kind of like stays all that way as he should be for the antagonist that he is.
Yeah, it is interesting,
yeah.
like you were saying, Josh, that they're pretty similar.
Mhm.
The Beast and Gaston.
Yeah,
only one,
yeah.
grows.
Only one comes out the victor, though.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I when I was re-examining, that verse, it's always been one of my favorites, or that scripture in First Corinthians, because it's at the beginning of the movie again. Like, I think that a lot of those characteristics are named, of like Prince Adam. He was selfish. I don't know if they use the word like arrogant and rude, but definitely unkind, things like that. And then Belle comes in, and she's kind of the opposite, the foil to that. But yeah, Gaston, through the story, he's the definition of arrogant and rude. He thinks he needs to be with Belle just because she's the most outwardly beautiful in the town. Like, he doesn't know who she is. Like, on the inside, they don't match up at all. But he's just, I'm going to win her because I deserve her, and that's not love at all. And then I think that it's different with the Beast because he does start, he's seeing if he can win Belle over, but really their love actually grows from a gradual mutual understanding of each other and a mutual respect. He has to kind of learn that, but he is redeemed in the end. But Gaston is not, I don't think. Is he redeemable? I think if he could be, but he's definitely not willing to, learn what love is. He's just, he's envious. That's why he goes after the Beast. He boasts all day. He has a whole song that's very boastful. So it's just all of those things that are listed in that scripture. That's Gaston.
He definitely has this like hardness of heart inside of him that, yeah, he's, like you said, could he be redeemed? Yeah, he could be, but he's choosing not to go that route. He's like doubling down on what he previously thought to be true, rather than taking a look at himself and saying, maybe this isn't the way to go.
It's like Belle, she even says at a certain point, she's like, he's not the monster, Gaston, you are.
Wild that I fear the wrong monsters were then released. So even LeFou in that version begins to think, it's like, maybe this beast, he hasn't really caused trouble, but Gaston is kind of acting more like the beast and a monster for what he's displaying.
Yeah, I think that's really important to point out too. I think I don't remember if in the animated version if LeFou has, that redeemable like moment at the end where he realizes, but definitely in the live action, I remember, by the end, LeFou, he's kind of changed over to the good side, which is really cool to see. But yeah, that I hate how catchy the mob song is. It is a really catchy villain song to sing. But yeah, the Beast, he's he's not terrorizing the village. He's in his castle. He's minding his own business. And Gaston is the one who is waging war on, the beast and the poor, like, servants who live there, like Lumiere, Cogsworth, and they're just kind of minding their own business. And he's going after, just out of that envy, that jealousy and anger of, like, now I think that spurs it on, is how could you fall in love with that and you couldn't fall in love with me? It's like he can't comprehend it. So
And I do like the song Gaston just because, well, uh, that song to me is just pride at 1,000%. Um, but and I think, Becky, you mentioned this, and it's how I learned. I learned a new word, which at that young age, which was expectorating.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Oh, it just means fitting.
Yeah. Fancy way.
But hey, kids, Gen Zers, if you want to sound, real classy, it's like, let's go out and expectorate for a moment.
good one.
But yeah, Gaston, good antagonist, and doesn't have really a redemptive, arc, unfortunately. But in a perfect world, every antagonist would have a redemptive arc. However, in the world that we live in and more stories, we need that opposing force to make a good story, to make, a good antagonist. And I've seen, countless posts on like Reddit or Facebook groups saying, oh, well, why couldn't this person, become a Christian? Or why can't this, one character, come to Christ in this story? And like, that'd be great. We would love that. But that's not reality. That would take away from the story. You always have to, for a good story for either lead, aside from the basic beginning, middle, and end, you have to have a good protagonist, and then you have to have a good antagonist. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a villain. It could be a circumstance, situation. But I feel without that, the story just lacks. But let's move on to the character of Belle, which we all know the town's outlook on her from the beginning song. So Sophie, if you want to go into that for a moment.
Yeah, so Belle was always one of my favorite Disney princesses growing up. You think of like Disney princesses in general, and you do think of their outward beauty, like you think of how they're beautiful on the outside. But really, the thing that comes most to mind is their personalities, like what makes the Disney princess like so kind, gentle, forgiving. So Belle herself, she was always one that I related to because her nose was always in a book. That's what makes her different from the rest of the villages. Like she's just walking around nose in a book. And I mean, the time period that the movie is set in, it's kind of silly, listening to the song. It's like they all hate her because she reads, like what? But the time period that it's set in, it makes a little more sense, as that's kind of unusual for a woman to be doing. And she's, kind of in her imaginary world a lot of the time. She's not interested in Gaston at all. And that also makes her different from the other, people in the town. It's like, why are you not fawning over him? And something that really sets Belle's character apart also is she yearns for adventure in the great wide somewhere. Like she yearns for this adventure, going somewhere and experiencing a story of her own. And something about Belle that I was thinking about this morning also is how, like, that moment of sacrifice, when she asks to stay in the castle in place of her father, she's just given up her dream of, having adventure in the great wide somewhere, like going somewhere and, having her own journey. She's just given it up out of love. Like she's just like, there's so much love in her to give. But something else about Belle that I always loved, I mean, the title of the film is Beauty and the Beast. Beauty is, that's who she is. She's beautiful on the outside, but she's not really portrayed as someone who, how like beauty is often portrayed in media or TV shows. It's like, oh, how she dresses, like she flips her hair, she's, perfect makeup on or anything. She's just, she's going about her day. The beauty comes from who she is on the inside. So I think that, I mean, I'm very grateful that we had this movie, growing up, my generation too. I think Belle really modeled for me, this is what to strive for. This is the beauty to strive for.
I think that's probably well, and the things that I was reading about even the original story is that that's why this story has endured in popular culture for so long, is because of the morals that it teaches of being the beauty comes from the inside, not just the outside. And it makes me think too, even of being a Christian, that's not something that you can see necessarily on the outside. That's something that's on the inside of who you are and your relationship with Christ. And yet, living in community with Him, something changes on the outside and we just radiate His love. At least that's the hope, so that people know that something is different about those Christians. That's how we're supposed to live, from a positive perspective, not a negative perspective. Unfortunately, there's a lot of Christians um, who do end up focusing a lot more on the negative than they do on the positive. But yeah, so it just kind of like radiates from the inside out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's like, yeah, we don't walk around with a sign like this. Ask me about Jesus. I mean, you could have that on your t-shirt. Something like, ask me about Jesus, you know. But, yeah, it is more in how I think that it does. Like when you have a love for Jesus, that just like comes through in what you do, I think, and like how you interact with others. I would hope. I hope that's how, we're presenting ourselves. But yeah, I agree completely. And I mean, like I mentioned earlier, like I went to a Christian undergrad. So it was like, yes, I kind of grew up, was raised in a community of other believers. But now, my career has not led me back to like a Christian campus. I work for a public university. I worked for like the public in general, like libraries, things like that. And, I don't offer like when I'm meeting with students, it's like, let me tell you about Jesus, because it's just like inappropriate enough, but I hope that people see, when you care, it's like when you're compassionate, when you're, welcoming. I mean, those are all things that Jesus, I think is, and that's what I strive for. I know I don't, definitely not perfect, definitely messed up a lot, but I think that Belle, as a character, she represents a lot of that too. It's just, it radiates from her. So I love that about her character.
She's so full of kindness and compassion.
Absolutely.
And that sacrificial love. And she has the ability to see beyond what is physically there. So the beast, of course, Prince Adam, he is physically scary, can be. I will say the book description of the beast is
A lot
terrifying.
more ruthless. When you're reading, when
my
Rebecca's
gosh.
reading it, I was like, gosh, man, this is like the beast times 10.
Really?
One of the things it doesn't say too much, but the main thing that stuck out to me was so Maurice, the father, the merchant, picks the rose, and the beast, he just like comes up and he lays his trunk across the neck and talks in this low growly voice, and you're like, okay, this is terrifying. It's really scary.
I think a sentence in the book is the merchant, or Maurice, referring to it in the book, is he didn't know whether to faint or fear from death or whatever. But Rebecca, you're saying, the long trunk just came across my shoulder.
No.
Freak out. So the beast, I guess, is maybe depicted a little bit differently than how it is in the Disney movie, because we have kind of like, the mane of the lion and the body of like between a wolf and a bear. So a lot of different, combinations of we'd see as beastly animals. But one thing I want to mention about Belle, and Rebecca or Sophie, you may have mentioned this previously, is definitely a woman ahead of her time, because she's not focused on like adorning like her makeup or finding a suitor. Like she gets her benefit and her worth from knowledge, as in the song says in Belle, no stuck in the book. Another line goes, behind that fair facade, I'm afraid she's rather odd. which to the townspeople, like, she is odd. She's not acting, like other women in the village her age. And Gaston even, sexist comment, says, it's not right for it's not white. It's not right for a woman to read. She starts getting ideas and thinking, and oh gosh, that's just horrible.
How terrible.
Which I think in the
Yeah.
1700s, I don't know if it was common for women to be well read. So maybe that's what it was alluding
No,
to.
I don't think so. You would have been nobility.
Oh, okay.
Or higher up.
All right. So
in the social
okay,
hierarchy.
so Gaston was just being a grade A. Well, you know what?
Well, yeah, the comment I made was that Gaston is the epitome of male misogyny.
Yes.
For sure, in like every aspect.
Absolutely. And that comment about like a woman shouldn't read, like, oh, it makes your blood boil. And he's a great villain in that way. But yeah, this movie, I mean, it's I was thinking about Gaston too earlier. And it's like, I had this movie to represent as a really young child, like, okay, this is behavior that you shouldn't put up with, like this is misogyny. We had that modeled for us, and then Belle standing up to that is really great to have that modeled as a kid.
Yeah.
We talked about Gaston, we talked about Belle, so let's get on a little bit about talking about the Beast. Again, we've talked about him a little bit before, about his kind of demeanor and his actions. The way he interacts with Belle, though, the first time, he has a little bit of compassion when Belle first makes the exchange with Maurice to take his place as a prisoner. And he says, well, I'm going to show you the room. He's like, I'm not staying here. What, you want to stay in the tower?
Have you noticed that I'm sure we all did, because we watched the like original VHS, but it always says, you wanna stay in the tower? Like it's like a weird repetition. Did you notice that?
I don't know if I ever noticed that. Now I need to go back and watch it.
That's in the original, but then they came out with the special edition with Human Again, the song, and I'm pretty sure they took it out.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a mistake.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I love those little tidbits.
But yeah, he shows Belle, to her room, and he's trying to be, because he knows what's at stake. He knows the possibility of what this could lead to with Belle. And he says, you can go anywhere, in the castle. This is your home now, except for the West Wing. And she's like, what's
like
there?
A dummy.
Yeah.
Don't tell someone not to go somewhere or look at something, because of course they're gonna want to look or go.
It's like, why? It's forbidden. It's like, just to get a bit more explanation.
I can't stand it when characters do that, when they say, don't do something, don't go somewhere, but then give absolutely no reason as to why. Like, why would you do that? Tell the person why. It's dangerous, or it's my personal quarters. That's all he had to have said. This is my personal quarters, and I don't really want you there.
Yeah, because Belle as a person, she would have respected that, I believe. You were like, okay, you told me not to go there, because that's like, that would be morally incorrect to go in there. But yeah, you're so right. It's so frustrating. It's like having a big shiny glittery button that says, don't press this button. It's like, okay, well, now I want to.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's interesting that Josh, is like you were saying, he had great compassion in that instance, so that she wouldn't stay in the dungeon, and he took her to her room. But then he seems to have no compassion towards her situation of like, well, why isn't she coming down to dinner? Why isn't she doing all of these things? Well, man, you just ruined her whole life by taking everything away. You're not letting her leave. You're not letting her see her dad. Like, what?
Yeah, like that whole dinner scene. Yeah. It's like, of course she's not, like when he's pounding on the door, it's like, come to dinner. Like, no, she doesn't want to see you and have dinner with you. You just locked her away.
It's either the Beauty and the Beast, Enchanted Christmas, or the other movie that was like 3 mini stories into one movie. The Beast says, well, you don't know what it's like to be a prisoner. She's like, yes, I do.
You take that back. don't know what it's like. You're my prisoner person. Like, you're the one keeping me here.
No.
But the more that the beast learns to be compassionate, learns to be patient, control its temper, that's where we see, the coming of the two, kind of come together, learn more about each other.
And there may be something there that wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm. As the song says, yes.
One thing that makes me laugh is in that song, Belle's like, why didn't I see it before? It's like, well, he was kind of mean to you. So you can get a pass for that one. Yeah.
The beast transformation at the end of the movie kind of reminded me of, not directly correlated, but when God makes things anew, not just the verse that says, he who is in Christ is a new creation, and you can see that kind of like illustration that transforming of the beast back to Prince Adam, but it also made me think of when like the magic dust or the fireworks are coming down and it's changing, the palace into restoring to what it was. Kind of makes me think of Revelation when God is going to restore the earth, through fire, and the old heavens and the old earth pass away, but the new heavens and the new earth, becomes anew to what it was originally intended for. So I thought, liking that imagery to that verse and to that story. So as we're kind of like wrapping up here again, there's a lot of different directions we could go with this, but
you didn't want to talk about the scene where they're getting ready for the ball.
Oh gosh. Well, okay.
I made a comment last night as we were watching it, and Josh was like, "Get out."
I told you we don't speak of that. Okay. All right. Before we go into this, Sophie, have you seen Full Metal Alchemist, either the original or Brotherhood?
I have, yes. It's one of my favorites.
Okay.
We haven't finished it yet.
I don't know if I can handle it anymore. Oh, okay.
It's emotional abuse.
All right.
That's what it feels like.
All right. Okay. Rebecca, okay, so we're watching this. We're watching this scene where the beast is getting bathed and scrubbed and whatnot. And then Becca makes a comment, and Becca, I'm going to let you take it from there because I'm still triggered by it.
And I was like, so it was right after the beast had, they were giving him a bath, and they like poured the bucket of water over his head, and his hair's all like in his face and everything. And I was like, kind of reminds me of Nina.
I knew exactly where you were going with that because like the mental image is in my mind. Okay, the reason it took me so long to finish Full Metal Alchemist, and because I got to that episode and I could not bear to watch anymore. I was like, this traumatized me, like genuinely. Oh goodness, what a memorable scene in anime. Very good storytelling, but so dark and so.
Well, okay, what also got me about it is I was looking for like fun Christmas sweaters like last year. Somebody had the audacity to put that image on a Christmas sweater, and like, who hurt you? Who hurt you?
Why would you ruin Christmas like this? Why? Oh man, yeah, I love that. Like that's such a I feel like every anime fan at least knows the reference to that scene. It hurts, man. So I don't blame you for saying get out, but it wasn't.
I'm like, we're trying to watch a nice movie. I don't need that image again. I mean, we've watched a couple episodes beyond that, though we haven't picked it up because we're actually get so inundated with new series, and Demon Slayer season is back again, so that's our Sunday night show, and
we need to pick it back up then.
Yeah, we do.
So Josh,
yeah,
I want to finish it.
It's so good, but yeah, I did have to take a lot of breaks in between because the story is so happy, beautifully written, but oh goodness,
yeah.
Yep.
Well, as we're kind of coming to a close, I definitely want to thank Sophie for joining us on this episode. There are so many different directions we could have gone with this movie and the themes, but again, only had so much time for a podcast.
I will say honorable mention here is hospitality.
Oh, yeah.
Hospitality is throughout the entire movie. I know we could go into detail, but just throw it out there for honorable mention of what we could have really, really gone into talking about.
We could have be our guest, that's
exactly.
Sophie, for those of our audience who want to follow you, keep up with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so like we talked about earlier, I've got a YouTube channel, so that's on under Sophiecat Cosplay. You can also find me on Instagram with under Sophiecat Cosplay. I do have a TikTok account too, and that username is Hey Sophiecat. So all of that should be wherever you find me online. You should also find links to my other social media. So would love to connect with you guys there. Yeah, so check it out.
And we will have links down to our socials in the video description. But until next time, keep those halos shiny and stay holy, my friends.